Hey everyone, magandang araw po sa ating lahat. And we are here again for another competence upgrade training under Met Review Center. Tulong po namin sa lahat ng mga magiging guro ngayong taon na ito. So let's claim it, this 2022, that we will all be licensed professional teachers. At nandito po kami, Met Review Center, to help you in this endeavor. And I am here as your reviewer for the teacher and the curriculum. I am Sir Ayo at your service. I am the in charge of the Curriculum and Instruction Office of the University of San Jose Recoletos in Cebu City. And I'll be at your service for today. I will have 20 questions related to teacher and the curriculum. These are original questions. These are also based from concepts that are related to curriculum. Plus, I've also added some concepts related to multiliteracies at saka social dimensions of education. Let's start. Number 1. William Bagley, 1874 to 1946, believes that the major role of schools is to produce a literate, intelligent electorate. He stresses the need to teach students thinking skills and the application of their academic knowledge. What philosophy is he a voice of? Again, as a technique, my dear teachers, let's underline some important terms. So in this case, perhaps we can underline the words literate, intelligent. Oo. Anong filosofiya? Yung may gusto na yung mga bata ay magiging literate, intelligent, focus on thinking skills, at saka application of academic knowledge. So what philosophy is William Bagley a voice of? Is it essentialism, perennialism, pragmatism, at social reconstructionism? Let's review. When we say perennialism, from the word perennial, perennial meaning timeless. So when it's timeless, therefore, we're focusing on being constant. So, ituturo natin kung ano yung constant. Ano yung mga constant? Yung values, yung philosophies, yung history, the nature of education, including human nature, is constant. So, hindi nagbabago yung school. Therefore, ang ituturo natin sa school at saka sa mga bata ay yung mga content at saka topics that have withstood the test of time. Kaya nga, clue word natin for perennialism is timeless or constant. So ano yung tuturo natin before, yun din yung ituturo daw ngayon. Essentialism from the word essence. And what is the essence of school? Academic. So even before the time of Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, school was academic. Focus on thinking, intelligence, etc. Kaya nga sabi dito, educational philosophy suggesting that specific knowledge and skills exist that all people should possess. Meron daw tayo mga knowledge and skills that all people must possess. They are essential. They have to be taught to all. Progressivism from the word progress. So this is in contention with perennialism because we focus on real-world problems, yung mga nangyayari in the world, at saka individual development. Development, pagbabago. So unlike perennialism and essentialism that focus on what is constant or the focus on intelligence, yung progressivism, tuturo natin sa mga bata yung pagbabago, development. Social reconstructionism, social society, reconstructionism, reconstruct, babaguhin yung society through schools. Sabi dito, schools, teachers, and students should take the lead in addressing social problems and improving society. So perennialism, timeless, constant. Essentialism, academic, knowledge, intelligence. Progressivism, development, pagbabago. Social reconstructionism, babaguhin ng schools yung society. Kaya nga, ituturo natin sa mga bata how to solve or address social problems. Yung word actually, yung letter C is pragmatism. Pragma, meaning work. Oo. Focusing on what is practical. Pragmatists believe that reality is constantly changing and that we learn best through applying our experiences. Kaya nga yung pragmatism is near to progressivism. Okay? Especially when it's talking about problems, individual at saka social problems. So yung sagot, when we go back to the slide, and we're talking about academic knowledge, intelligence. Sabi ni William Bagley na dapat lahat daw ng bata ay tuturuan how to think. Kaya nga yung sagot ay letter. Can you comment in the comment section? The answer is, of course, essentialism. Okay, the essence of school. And the essence of school is academic. Kaya nga, sabi ni William Bagley, we have to teach children how to be intelligent so that they'll be helpful in society. So, siya ay isang essentialist. Second, in his publication, Paideia Proposal in 1982, Mortimer Adler, 1902 to 2001, advocated that all students be educated in the classics and that education should be a lifelong venture. What philosophy is he a voice of? We discussed it earlier na, di ba? Merong filosofiya that focused on kung ano yung tinuturo before would still work at present. That actually relates with being a lifelong venture. At saka ituturo yung mga classics. Yung mga constants. And that is, what philosophy is that? That is on being a perennialist. So yung tamang sagot, perennialism. So Mortimer Adler, is a perennialist. Whereas William Bagley is an essentialist educationist. Pangatlo, Summerhill is a school by A.S. Neal that's in 1883 to 1973. He encouraged youngsters to make their own decisions about what and when to learn. What philosophy does the non-conventional school adhere to? Meron tayong clue din dito. It's non-conventional. So it's not academic. It's not perennial also. It's something unique. At ang nakapa-unique ng school ni A.S. Neal, which is Summerhill, is that the youngsters will make their own decisions. They will decide on what they will learn and when to learn them. So, is that behaviorism, constructivism, existentialism, and social reconstructionism? Social reconstructionism, again, focus on changes in society. Wala namang item dito or word dito sa item natin or sa statement natin about changing society. It's about own decisions. Kaya nga, let's review the other philosophies. When we say behaviorism, the focus is on behavior. Teachers want students to follow a certain behavior. Kaya nga, good behavior would relate to doing homework, studying for the test, at saka general good classroom behavior like sitting still, etc. Kaya nga, we need to give reinforcements, rewards, at saka punishments. Constructivism naman, from the word construct, we're talking about the knowledge construct based on experiences. Kaya nga, development, focus on the goals that a child has on his or her own, at saka mga pedagogical approaches that focus on multiple perspectives, cognition, apprenticeship, process-based, so that it will impact on the construction of the child's knowledge. Kaya nga, we use Vygotsky's zone of proximal development theory as well, because they will be able to construct their own knowledge if the adult works as a more knowledgeable other that assists the child in his or her own development or construct. This is not related to the situation. Kasi the situation is talking about own decisions at saka non-conventional. Although this is non-conventional, yung constructivism, at saka conventional yung behaviorism. But the focus on constructivism is on the mental construct. Yung existentialism naman, focus on individual existence, subjectivity, at saka individual freedom and choice. Oo. I think this is more related to the situation kasi it's about students' own decisions or own choice. Meron silang freedom, and that in this philosophy, we adhere to the students' freedom. Existentialism deals with how the individual chooses to define their own reality. Kasi sabi dito sa philosophy na ito, everyone lives in their own little world or reality even when they are surrounded by others. Kaya nga, existence precedes essence. So, yung sagot sa situation sa Summerhill is existentialism. Existence precedes essence. Kaya nga may existence yung bawat bata and that we have to respect, adhere to the freedom of the child. The child will develop in his or her own. Yun yung filosofiya ng existentialism. Next. The following are classroom activities that a social reconstructionist teacher might observe except. So careful tayo ha, yung mga word na except or not. Sometimes they are not capitalized. Hindi sinusunod ng board exam yung principles of test construction. Kaya nga you have to read very well. Okay? So again, these are all classroom activities of a social reconstructionist teacher except one. So saan dito yung hindi social reconstructionist? Letter A. The class will pursue a long-term project to investigate the problem that was identified from a photo exhibit of violent acts of racism. Meron tayong mga clue dito. This is social reconstructionist yung letter A. Kasi nga, we're talking about problems in society. At one problem in society is racism. And therefore, there will be a long-term project in the classroom that will be done by the teacher and the students to investigate such social problem. So, hindi letter A. Because this is social reconstructionist. Some children might be discussing a science experiment, while another group works on a model volcano, and a third group prepares for a presentation. Parang wala namang social problem dito, di ba? Although may volcano naman, and it's related to what is happening in society, pero the focus again is on a model volcano eh. Siguro better, this would become more social reconstructionist if we're talking about disasters that have happened because of volcanic eruptions. Ganon sana. Let's check letter C. The literary selections discussed by the teacher both intellectually inform and emotionally stir students about the iniquities that surround the community. Oh, it's about society, the community, at saka yung mga inequalities that are happening. And they are being discussed in literary selections in perhaps a language class. So this is a social reconstructionist activity. Letter D. Students will examine government records for information about housing patterns, income levels, graduation rates, and other relevant statistics in math class. Wow. Napaka-excellent naman ng teacher na ito kasi the teacher is using social data from government records about housing patterns, about income levels. These are situations in society. And that in the math class, they will be discussed. And you might think that aside from discussing statistics in math class, parang may magiging discussion din si math teacher on income levels, on graduation rates, and how they affect society. Kaya it's still a social reconstructionist activity. Kaya yung sagot is letter B. Let's check if tama tayo. Correct. Letter B. This is perhaps a progressivist activity. Next, examine the table below which summarizes the tenets of progressivism. Progressivism yung focus natin ha. By the way, just like what I'm doing, you can also do this in your test questionnaires. You can write in the test questionnaire. Just don't write anything in the answer sheet, okay? Make it clear. Which item in the table is incorrect about progressivist philosophy? So yung table is concerning focus of curriculum, sample classroom activity, the role of the teacher, at saka goals for students. Saan daw rito yung hindi progressivist? Let's see. Focus. Flexible, integrated study of academic subjects around the needs and experiences of students. This is progressivist. when it's talking about needs of the students, experiences of the students, integration, that's progressivist. Classroom activity natin, learning by doing, field trips, on-the-job training, experiential methods. This is very progressivist din. Role of the teacher. The teacher here is model of academic and moral virtue and is the center of the classroom. Kasi in a progressivist classroom, because it's more on experience, the student should be the center of the classroom at hindi yung teacher. The teacher is just there by the side siguro, giving instructions or leading them in their own experiences. Let's check letter D, goals for students. To become intelligent problem solvers, socially aware, who are prepared to live comfortably in the world. That's why we have to let children experience as early as now in school what is happening in society or in the community so that they get to live comfortably, they get to know how to change or progress when the time comes that they are already adults. Oo. Yeah, this is also progressive. So yung tamang sagot is letter C. Tama, role of the teacher. Kasi nga, the role of the teacher in a progressivist classroom is more of a facilitator or someone who gives instructions towards the experiential activities that the students are going to do in a progressivist classroom. Okay? Ito, yung model of academic and moral virtue, center of the classroom, this is more perennialist. Mm-hmm. Kasi in a perennialist classroom, we focus on moral virtue. This is a timeless act that teachers must have, that they will have to teach to their children, which have been important before and are still important at present. Next question. Which statement does not reflect a behaviorist philosophy in schools and the curriculum? If you remembered earlier, yung discussion natin on behaviorism, we focus on the change of behavior of the child and that the child's behavior will affect how the teacher is going to teach and how the entire educational process of the children will flow. It's about the behavior of the child. In that, we give reinforcement, rewards, and even punishments so that the child will act accordingly in learning. So again, saan dito yung hindi behaviorist? Letter A, children act in response to physical stimuli. Response to physical stimuli, that's very behaviorist. Diba? For example, yung physical stimuli mo is a stick. Diba? And once they see the stick, they're going to sit properly. Yeah. So children act in response to a stimuli that you provide them. Letter B, positive reinforcement promotes desired learning in children. Reinforcement, rewards, and even punishments are reinforcing activities that will hopefully let children act a certain way or behave in a certain way. Letter C, if you alter a child's environment, you will also be able to alter his or her thoughts, feelings, and behavior. O lumabas yung behavior. Sabi dito sa letter C, if you want the child to change or alter thoughts, feelings, and behavior, we also have to cater to the environment. Kaya nga, behaviorist teachers, sila yung mga teachers na dapat clean yung room, dapat arrange yung mga chairs, at saka yung mga bagay-bagay sa loob ng classroom, because the environment affects the child's behavior. If the environment is messy, the children will tend to be messy, noisy, and unorganized as well. Letter D. The humanities should be emphasized as a means of providing students with vicarious experiences that will help unleash their self-expression. Humanities is not really the focus of a behaviorist teacher. Kasi yung behaviorist teacher is more on good attitude, ganon. Yung vicarious experiences naman, hindi rin behaviorist. Kasi this is more progressivist. It's about experiences or even constructivist. If we talk about experience. Tsaka yung self-expression, it's also not behaviorist kasi there's no self-expression focus in a behaviorist classroom. May isang pamamaraan lang at may isang way of expressing oneself, and that is through good behavior. Kaya nga yung sagot is letter D. Okay? Next, teacher-centered approaches. So our teacher-centered approach is the best means to implement the curriculum for which acceptable reason. So yung teacher-centered approaches, I hope you are familiar with them, diba? May curriculum na teacher-centered. If we're focusing on philosophy, yung mga philosophy na teacher-centered are perennialist, essentialist, behaviorist. So again, yung tanong, are teacher-centered approaches the best means to implement the curriculum for which acceptable reason? Yes, letter A. They best prepare students for the information age with its emphasis on student-led research skills. Hindi. In a teacher-centered approach, wala tayong focus on student-led skills. Especially on research and information kasi teacher-centered approaches, teacher-led dapat. So, hindi letter A. B. Yes, students who listen thoughtfully and participate respectfully in classroom discussions have disciplined minds and become respectful citizens of our society needs. Sabi dito sa letter B, students who listen thoughtfully and participate respectfully in classroom discussions, teacher-centered to. Kasi students are just passive listeners. But they are taught to be disciplined. They are taught to become respectful citizens if they listen well to the teacher who is actually being emphasized in the classroom activities or in the classroom discussion. So parang pwede letter B. Let's check the other option so that we'll be sure. No, a tough and demanding curriculum can compete with other nations even if we are falling behind from them. Hindi. Diba? Ang mali ng statement. Diba? A tough and demanding curriculum can compete with other nations even if we are falling behind. Parang hindi naman yata. Diba? Letter D. Teachers are not the best stakeholders to select what is worth knowing even if they are trained and best equipped to do so. Parang minamalit naman natin yung teachers, no? Hindi sila yung best stakeholders daw to teach children to be trained, to be behave, and to be disciplined. So yung sagot is letter B. Sabi dito, in teacher-centered education, students put all their focus on the teacher. The teacher talks while the students exclusively listen. During activities, students might work alone. Collaboration is discouraged with the teacher and the students. But still, the teacher being the center of interest, the involvement of the teacher in the curriculum development is high. Teacher plays an important role in the development of the student. So, sabi nga rito, the teacher in a teacher-centered education, hindi naman sinasabi natin na mali yung teacher-centered education, teacher-centered approaches, hindi naman siya mali. Diba? It teaches children actually how to be disciplined, how to listen well, how to assure themselves, diba, that they are really learning out from what the teacher is actually sharing or discussing. Kaya nga yung sagot again is letter. Next, the curriculum should be the responsibility of the family and the community rather than delegated to formal and impersonal institutions such as schools. Napaka-unique no, ng philosophy. What is the best educational term to describe this thought? So again, we're talking about curriculum, but it is the responsibility of the family and the community at hindi daw sa schools. So what term could actually encapsulate this idea? Informal education, lifelong learning, student-centered approach, at saka transformative education. Let's discuss first lifelong learning. So lifelong learning, from the term itself, diba, learning is lifelong. It continues even after school. Pero hindi eh. This is about children in their school age learning in schools. Pero sabi raw, it's not the school's responsibility dapat for children to really learn. It should be by the family and the community. So it's not really about lifelong learning. Kasi lifelong learning also encapsulates or includes school learning. But we go beyond the school. Okay? So hindi lifelong learning. When we say student-centered approach, kabaliktaran ng teacher-centered approach, in which the student is the one given interest or emphasis in the activities and tasks in the classroom and in the entire school system. So this is still about school, no? Hindi naman about family and community. So it's not letter C. So let's discuss informal education at saka transformative education. Okay? Now we have formal education, non-formal education, at saka informal education. So when we say formal education, that's formal. It's structured, it's intentional, it's planned by the administrators, the teachers, with the families. It covers the educational provision known as compulsory schooling. So primary and secondary education and even university is part of formal education. When we say non-formal education, we're talking about education that might happen outside the school, compulsory schooling. But there is still educational intent and there is still planning of teaching and learning activities. So for example, courses online or siguro leisure activities, sporting activities, even homeschooling is non-formal type of education. Again, it's outside the school, but there is still planning, there's still educational intent. Informal education, unintentional, unplanned, and it might happen during the everyday interaction of the child with others. And where is the child's interaction happening? It could happen in school with his or her classmates, and it can happen in the family at home, or it could happen also in the community where the child lingers, where the child goes, where the child actually plays around, etc. So this is nearer to our answer. But to be sure, let's check transformative education. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng transformative education? Transformative education, experiencing a deep structural shift in the basic premises of thoughts, feelings, and actions. Parang hindi naman. Diba? So when we really say transformative learning or transformative education, the educational process that a child will have will be about deep shifts or changes on the thoughts, feelings, and actions of that child. It's really more on how do we really provide the child or the learners with an educational process or an educational system that is deeper, that would really change them, that would really make them into a full man. That's transformative education. Although it could be helped through family and community, pero pwede naman itong mangyayari even without them. Yeah. Kaya yung sagot is letter A, informal education. Okay? Next. Which of the following consists of the formal, written, or explicit curriculum? Saan daw dito yung formal, written, at saka explicit? Let's see. Curriculum guide. Tama. Formal. Tapos meron namang number 1 lahat. Diba? Student handbook. Kasali ba yung student handbook sa formal, written, or explicit curriculum? The answer is yes. Written. Nakasulat. Diba? Specific lesson plans. Of course, nakasulat yan. Diba? And it's also formally written or prepared by the teacher. It's also explicit kasi nandyan nakasulat. Description of courses offered? Yes. Oo. Yung description ng mga subject or yung mga courses, oo, they're also included. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Ay, wala yung 4. Oo. Wala yung 4. Sige. Let's continue. Clubs and student organizations? Hindi. Most of the time, they are not really part of the formal system of learning in a school. Although may mga schools that provide clubs and student organizations for children, but generally they are voluntary. They are prepared by the students themselves or with a teacher who has the same interest, but they are not really included in the entire curriculum. So, hindi kasali yung five. Classroom activities that will enable students to meet curriculum standards. Who prepare these classroom activities? Yung teacher. So they are part of the formal at saka explicit. And they're also written as well in the lesson plan of the teacher. Yung monthly celebration programs, yung buwan ng wika, innovation month, etc. Are they part of the formal, written, or explicit? Hindi. They are not really formal. They actually happen outside of the classroom. Diba? Para silang non-formal activities. They are done at the end of the month, tapos nag-meet lahat ng students at saka yung stakeholders, tapos they celebrate. The buwan ng wika, for example, in August, or Innovation Month, Science Month during September. Pero hindi naman sila kasali sa entire written at saka formal curriculum. They are beyond the provisions of the curriculum. Syllabi, of course, yung syllabus. Diba? That's a written contract or that's a written plan of the year or of the semester with the learners. Kaya yung sagot is letter, that's number 8, ha? So the answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, at saka 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8. So yung sagot is letter B. Okay? We're talking about formal curriculum. So when we say formal curriculum, formal instruction, explicit kasi they are written, they are placed. Perhaps example in textbooks. Written curriculum then is related to formal curriculum because the ability to read, write, and think, these are what we teach our children in schools. It can also be called overt curriculum, meaning open, public, nakikita, at saka na-experience ng mga bata. Okay? So that's formal curriculum. Okay, yung sagot again is letter B. Next. Jules Henry, an anthropologist, described a fourth grade spelling bee. So spelling bee daw, yung contest on spelling. Team members were chosen by the captains. When a student spelling a word correctly, then the board gets hit. When 3 spelling errors were made, the team was out. Students cheered or groaned depending on the outcome of their team. So according to Henry, students were learning powerful lessons of the importance of winning, the pain of losing, competition, and that competition can turn a friend to an adversary or a foe. The joy of being chosen early by the team captains, and the embarrassment and rejection when you are not chosen by the team captains. So, ito daw yung mga natutunan ng bata in a spelling bee. And if you come to think of it, these are actually not really what the teachers and the school administrators are teaching the children, but they are learning this in the process of the spelling bee competition. Kaya nga, what type of curriculum is described by Jules Henry? Implicit curriculum, learned curriculum, null curriculum, taught curriculum. I think hindi siya taught because this is through an activity, diba? And children are learning the values even if they are not taught to them explicitly. They can be learned curriculum, diba? But generally, yung learned curriculum is a combination of both what was taught by the teachers at saka yung own insights ng bata. In this case, own insights lang eh. Diba? And they are not even what is being taught to children. Implicit, what's another word for implicit, teachers? H, hidden curriculum. Anong ibig sabihin ng null curriculum? Yung null curriculum, teachers, yung ibig sabihin niyan is they are not they're the things which the teachers decided not to really teach to children. So for example, perhaps a science teacher and part ng curriculum niya would be reproductive system, and because the teacher thinks that the children are not yet ready when it comes to concepts of sex, And sex education, kaya hindi tuturo ni teacher yung ovulation process at saka yung abstinence at saka yung ano pa yung mga konsepto ng sex in his class or her class. Kaya yung sex education, yung abstinence, at saka yung ovulation, etc., they are already the null curriculum. It's the set of topics or the set of concepts which are curricular in nature, but they are decided by the teacher and even by the school to not be taught by the or to the students. Kaya nga, ang tawag dyan, null curriculum. So, ito, they are part of the spelling bee, but the teacher did not decide to also not include these tasks. These are really implicitly learned by the children through an activity which the teacher decides to do. So therefore, this is hidden curriculum. Let's discuss. So types of curriculum, we have the intended curriculum at saka the unintended curriculum. Ito yung mga unintended curriculum. Okay? Another term for unintended curriculum would be implicit or hidden curriculum. Intended curriculum, formal at saka ideal. Implemented curriculum, they are the curricula that is perceived by the students, received by the students, perceived by the students. And it's kind of operational based on the experiences that the teacher does or has with his or her students. Curriculum in action. Attained curriculum, this is based on the actual experiences that a child has. Of course, this is the result of the curriculum. Kaya nga tawag dito sa ating curriculum is also learned curriculum. And outside these would be the hidden or the implicit or the unintended curriculum. Kaya yung sagot is letter A. Okay? It's not intended, but it came about. They are being taught to children without the school, the parents, the other stakeholders, school administrators, not really wanting them to learn things. Next, which stakeholder assumes a larger role in education by creating national standards, curriculum guides, frameworks? National government? Pwede. Diba? Parents? Hindi. Diba? Walang kinalaman yung parents community groups. Although they can be invited, no, for curriculum planning, but they are not really the stakeholder that has a large role when it comes to creating such standards and curriculum. School administrators, pwede. Pwede. But again, we're talking about national. Students, hindi. And I think you know the answer. Ano yung tamang sagot? Can you chat in the comment section? I hope you are putting letter A. Ito yung mga stakeholders, parents, teachers, administrators, community. Learners are the heart of the learning process. They are the heart in the curriculum. Everything that we're doing is for them. Diba? Yung Republika ng Pilipinas, yung government is of course a very huge part of the stakeholders, especially that they are the ones who are really planning for what would be included in the curriculum. Sila yung gumagawa ng national standards, sila yung gumagawa ng curriculum guides, sila din yung mga nag-a-update ng curriculum. They have that big role. Kaya yung sagot is letter A, the national government, represented by the Department of Education for Basic Ed, the Commission on Higher Education for Higher Education, at saka TESDA for Skills Development. Next, which is seen to be the greatest influence on what is taught in schools and in the curriculum due to the country's poor performance in them. Again, please understand the question. Ano daw yung greatest influence in what is taught in the curriculum? Especially that the country is having poor performance in them. So sila yung ginagamit na influence on curriculum at ano yung tinuturo. Kasi nga, we are performing poorly in them. Is it about technology? Is technology an influence on what is taught in school? Pwede. But not exactly. Diba? Yeah, ituturo naman natin kung ano yung mga pagbabago sa technology, but not drastically, not right away. It's also not really what the curriculum planners are thinking. Yung technology, hindi naman. Di ba? Kasi yung, if we'll just put it no, in the context of the Philippines, um, although naging updated naman tayo with technology, but we are more essentialist sa perennialist when it comes to curriculum, di ba? And the technology that are the gadgets that are being taught to children are those which teachers know. Di ba? Hindi naman matuturo ng teacher kasi yung mga makabagong teknolohiya. Although we are trying our best, like artificial intelligence, etc., tinatry naman natin ituro sa mga bata. Kaso lang, we are not really that prepared or hindi tayo trained on such technology. Kaya hindi access to technology yung greatest influence on what is taught in the curriculum. Economic and business affiliations, pwede if it's a private school. Diba? So for example, it's a private school and it's being owned by this business. Diba? So yung negosyo or ano yung mga insights kayo yung mga filosofiya ng business, no? Of that private school, yun yung tinuturo. But hindi eh. Meron pa rin tayong national curriculum na fina-follow. So it's not really what the national writers of the curriculum are thinking. Population demographics, parang hindi rin. Di ba? Anong ibig sabihin ng population demographics? For example, ito yung tuturo natin kasi yung mga kabataan natin nandito sa class na ito. They are class B citizens. Parang hindi naman. Di ba? We even teach children about what is happening in the poorest of the poor. And we're even sharing to them also what are the ideal situations of the rich people. So parang hindi naman ito yung basis, di ba, on what is taught in school. Standardized test. Yung test daw ay yung greatest influence on what is taught in school. Have you tried their teachers yung itinuturo sa inyo yung sagot sa National Achievement Test? Or sinasabi palagi ni teacher na I'm going to teach this kasi ito yung lumalabas sa national exam. Ito yung lumalabas sa exam. And just like what math is doing, ito yung tuturo namin kasi ito yung lumalabas sa board exam palagi. Yeah. So the answer is letter D. Yung standardized tests. They are the basis, they are the greatest influence of what is taught in the curriculum. Especially that the Philippines is performing poorly in international tests, like TIMSS. And most of the time, hindi naman talaga kaaya-aya yung standardized tests. For example, multiple choice and short answer tests, they are poor measures of student achievement. If we really want to know if students are really achieving and learning, di ba, we let them perform. Kaya nga may performance task sa ating grading system. High-stakes tests cause curriculum to be narrowed. When we say narrowed, ibig sabihin dito, we are only teaching children about what is coming out in the exam. Kaya nagiging narrow yung curriculum. We are not teaching children anymore about facts of life, yung mga kailangan nilang matutunan, like financial literacy, etc. Kasi hindi naman lumalabas sa exam. Etc. Ang daming um, situations, ang daming insights about standardized testing that hopefully the Philippines is not really following. But I think you know the truth. Yeah? Yung tinuturo natin kung ano yung lumalabas sa standardized tests, which is sad. Yeah? Kasi it's not really just about standardized tests. Kaya nga, greatest influence in the curriculum generally, and it's actually also rampant in the world, standardized tests. Which of the following is not outlined in the curriculum guides by the Department of Education? Content standards, list of references, performance standards, and student learning activities. Let's check a sample curriculum guide. Content, meron. Content standards, meron. Performance standards, meron. Learning competencies, which are very specific, no, from the standards, are also included. At saka yung code. LM. Ano ibig sabihin ng LM? Learning materials. So, dito nagre-refer yung teacher, okay, on activities at saka perhaps more resources on the topics or on the content in teaching these standards at saka competencies. So the learning materials would become references. So ano yung wala, dear teachers? Yung student learning activities. Kasi yung student learning activities are also on the discretion of the teacher. Yung teacher ang may alam on how to really do learning activities that would fit the situation of his or her learners. Next, which is not a desirable reason, not ha, to adopt national curricular standards and standardized testing. It's still about standardized testing. So, alin daw rito yung hindi desirable reason? Letter A. Standardized tests will enable us to compare student performance and to understand what it takes to learn the set national standards. Oo, di ba? This can be a reason why we adapt curriculum to the standardized test. Kasi nga, we get to compare student performance based on the standards. Letter B. Teachers work collaboratively rather than in isolation as a set of standards promotes cooperation on how to identify problems and develop solutions. Pwede. Yeah, pwede. When we know the standardized tests and we know the standards, diba? Teachers can work collaboratively to be able to know, diba, what they need to do so that the standards in the tests will be attained as a collaborative effort of all teachers, especially teachers handling the same subject. So pwede. Letter C. Schools will take time from studies to prepare students for high-stakes tests and will replace teaching with test preparation programs to ensure test efficiency. Parang hindi maganda na reason. Kasi, ibig sabihin dito, that schools, instead of really teaching children about what is necessary, they will replace teaching daw with test prep para the children would really do well in standardized tests. Parang hindi naman yata, di ba? Teachers are there to really teach children. And the standardized test can be basis of what is to be taught and how to teach. Pero replacing the teachers and their teaching time just to give them test preparation, parang hindi naman yata. Diba? Letter D, national standards offer a unifying experience as children will learn about our common heritage. Without such standards, we become dangerously pluralistic. Ito, maganda itong reason for standardized tests and curricular standards. Kasi nga, when we have a set of standards and a test that will match the curriculum standards, our children will learn about our common heritage, which is of course being taught and tested in a national curriculum and a standardized test. So yung sagot is letter, yung hindi kaya-aya na reason, letter C. Okay? Next. Because of today's economic challenges, schools are challenged to derive a curriculum that will teach children to balance a checkbook, keep credit card under control, improve spending and saving habits. These are all competencies under what relevant literacy? Is it arts and creativity? Hindi. Cultural? Hindi. It's about economic, credit card, checkbook, saving. Hindi rin eco-literacy. Yung sagot, financial literacy. Yeah? It's about finance. Diba? Pera. I think no question about that. When we say financial literacy, it's having the education and understanding of topics such as, for example, investing, money, and managing personal finance. Meron ng law to include financial literacy in basic education. As to how it goes, it's still being prepared by the Office of Curriculum Instruction of the Department of Education. Sagot, letter D. Teacher and the school curriculum are encouraged to merge teaching and learning with social improvement. Oh, may pagka-social reconstructionist na philosophy daw. The purpose of which is to teach students how to identify and then remediate social challenges. This approach connects schooling with actions to enhance the quality of human life. So again, we teach daw about social improvement, how to solve social challenges, and how to act according to these problems and situations in society so that we can enhance the quality of human life. So these are movements related to this definition, except saan daw yung hindi about social improvement, social challenges, and all. So let's define each of the phrases here. Okay? When we say critical pedagogy, from the word critical, so itinuturo natin yung critical. At ano yung ibig sabihin dito on being critical? About dominance, about the beliefs and practices that dominate them. It tries to help students become critically conscious. So, saan nakikita yung dominance at saka yung subversion? It's in racism. It's in inequalities. Yeah? So these are all social concerns. So critical pedagogy is related to what is being shared earlier in the question. Pangalawa is education for sustainable development. So when we say education for sustainable development, we develop in our children knowledge, skills, perspectives, and values to empower people, related ito with action, to assume responsibility for creating and enjoying a sustainable future. This is about society. So I think ESD is also related to what is being discussed in the situation. Kanina. Again, let me continue. Is this also a process of learning how to make decisions that consider the long-term future of the economy, ecology, and equity of all? So it's about society. So it's not letter B. Yung letter C is global citizenship education. So I think kuha naman ito, no? Global citizenship education, it's really about society, especially in a global scale. When we say GCED, universal principles such as human rights, inclusion, gender equality, non-discrimination, these are all social issues. Diba? And therefore, we aim that our society will be transformed for the better. And that the self will have to take action, o lumabas yung action, at the local level, and that it would be contextualized so that we can build peaceful and sustainable society starting with our own community. Ang ganda ng global citizenship education. It's related to social improvement, social change. Yung media information literacy is about the ability of learners to be equipped on how to be self-directed, about not just using a computer, but also about how to handle information, how to be critical when it comes to information, transfer of knowledge through media information, and decision making. Parang these are more personal or related to self-improvement, diba? Rather than social improvement. Although, I would have to say that we need media information literacy so that we'll be able to change society. Diba? But when it comes to the situation, in the question, it's about social improvement, social challenges. So yung sagot is letter D. Because it's not quite related. But critical pedagogy, it's about teaching about what dominates and what is subversive, diba, to children so that they'll be able to critically think about what to do. Education for sustainable development is about sustaining our environment, our societies, so that it will be livable. Diba? Therefore, we have to solve the social challenges and therefore sustain what is being good. Diba? Global citizenship education, or lalong-lalo na global citizenship education, this is really about human rights and about what is really happening in a global scale and that we have to solve it locally first or contextually. So tamang sagot is letter D. Next. The following are good suggestions to eliminate bias in curriculum selection and planning, except, okay? So these are all good suggestions except one. Kung saan dito yung hindi, good suggestion, so that we will eliminate bias in curriculum. Letter A, avoid linguistic bias by choosing the right word to describe or modify people, places, things, and events. This is a good suggestion. Avoid bias, especially when it comes to language use. Letter B, do not assign a rigid role or trait to a particular group to avoid stereotype. For example, women in family roles only. This is a good suggestion, di ba? So when we create stories or when we create situations raw, di ba, in the curriculum or in the content or in the learning materials, dapat we don't stereotype. So this is a good suggestion. Letter C, make sure to include a good number of representation of minorities like women, indigenous groups, persons with disabilities, and other gender groups. Yeah, this is a good suggestion. Di ba? When we teach, di ba? When we select the curriculum, it should represent minorities. Letter D, present the country in its perfect picture with all its issues and worries not identified or tackled to overlook class differences and show a great society. Hmm. Although, parang maganda, no, that we have to cover yung mga problema natin sa ating country. But I think it's being biased. We are being biased in our own country. We should teach our children also about what is ideal at saka what is real, what is really happening. Ano ba talaga yung makatotohanang picture of what is happening in society. So we have to teach children that there is really this presence of hunger and poverty in our situation, na merong mga social inequities that are happening. Diba? And um, we should not cover them, diba? But rather we have to tackle them headstrong, and we have to facilitate our children well in the discussion of these concepts. So yung tamang sagot is letter D because it's not a good suggestion. Diba? Gender bias is really present. For example, in the images, even in the themes, tsaka yung mga stereotypes in samples, in the sentences, or in the texts. Diba? So, it's present even in the curriculum. So, we have to avoid them. Okay? Next. The following statements define global education and its curriculum except. So, these are all about global education except one. Saan daw? Dito yung hindi about global education. A. Extend students' awareness of the world in which they live by opening them to the diverse heritage of human thoughts and action and creativity. I think this is about global education, diba? Extending awareness of the world. B, seeks to weave the boundaries between the disciplines and encourages emphasis on what interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary studies can bring to understand solutions to human problems. This is also correct. Global education, because it's global, so we're not just thinking about subjects as they are separately. We have to apply everything that we are learning in these academic subjects to be able to solve global issues. C explains the integration of economies and societies around the world as they are knit together by travel, language, values and ideas, trade, labor and financial flows, communication, and technology. Hmm, pwede. Especially when we're talking about travel, at saka language, at saka values and ideas. Pwede, right? But we have to know that it's not really just all about these. It's not just about these. Letter D places particular emphasis on the changes in communication and relationships among people throughout the world, highlighting in the curriculum such issues as human conflict, economic systems, human rights, and social justice, human diversity, and the impact of technological revolution. I think this is a good statement related to global education. Kasi nga, we're talking about global issues and that how our children must learn how to communicate and how to build relationships to be able to solve such issues. When we say global education, my dear teachers, we're talking about becoming aware of educational conditions or the lack of them in developing countries worldwide, and then the aim to educate all people. Okay? It is international in scope, in which we have to prepare our youth, our children around the world to function in a one world environment. And therefore, our children will be taught to will be taught under teachers who are also intellectually, professionally, and humanistically prepared. So yung sagot is, as what I discussed, is letter C. Yeah. Although there's about economy and society around the world, but it's not just really about travel, it's not just really teaching them about the different languages of the world, etc. It's beyond that. Yeah? And that's global education. Next, which of the following skills should be required of children and youth in the curriculum to master the world's greatest challenges regardless of national origin or cultural upbringing? Ano ba yung dapat nating ituro sa mga bata? Diba? Especially in a global educational setting. Is that about emotional leadership skills? Hmm. Higher order cognitive and interpersonal skills? Maganda to na option. Kasi there is thinking. And of course, most of the time in school, we teach children how to be cognitive. But it's not just about memorization, it's also about higher order cognitive skills like being able to judge, being able to analyze, being able to create something, and being paired with interpersonal skills because cognitive skills are not enough. Diba? There should be interpersonal skills like teamwork and communication. Psychomotor skills, parang kulang naman. Diba? Social and spiritual skills, not all are spiritual. So this is not inclusive. Although letter A is also good, emotional leadership skills, but because we're talking about curriculum and saka school, so we're talking about cognition, academic, but higher order thinking skills. So I think you know where I'm going. Yeah, it's letter B. So again, why higher level thinking? In addition to content, we also need to be concerned with students' thinking skills or mental processes. Just imagine that thinking is the software, diba? And our actions are the hardware. What would be the purpose of our psychomotor skills or our hardware, diba? If we don't have good thinking skills. And that higher level thinking will also allow students to use memory. Memory is lower level, diba? It's remembering. It's a lower level thinking skill. It- Our children must know how to use beyond memory. Okay, remember that. Also, when it comes to interpersonal skills, they are very important. Diba? It fosters effective communication until the last part, encouraging empathy. Yeah. Important words, feedbacking, opportunities, relatability, awareness, satisfaction with clients or with people around us, trust, relationships, leadership, empathy. Kaya nga yung sagot is letter. Last question na tayo. To solve the problem in mismatch in skills and the requirements of the job, President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo issued an executive order converging TVET of TESDA with the higher education curricular programs of CHED. So again, imagine, there's a mismatch in skills. Kaya nga one solution, as proposed by PGMA and her cabinet, at saka yung senators at saka congressman, there's an executive order and there's actually also a law to converge or to connect TVET programs in TESDA with higher education curricular programs in CHED. So if you're familiar, for example, you're taking BSIT, but in the 2 years of taking BSIT, you could actually have NC2 in programming perhaps, or NC2 in um, uh, drawing or in digital skills. O, ganon. Okay? Anong tawag doon? Okay, anong tawag niya? And in the 4 years of BSIT, if you just decide to just finish it in 2 years, so you will become an associate in, let's say, information technology or in computer technology, and you will get the qualifications under TESDA. So, anong tawag dyan? Is it ladderized? Public-private partnership, senior high school, saka TVET skills training. Of course, it's not senior high school. Kasi we're talking about CHED. Senior high school is basic ed. Diba? Besides, this was during the time of PGMA. So wala pang senior high school doon. Although PGMA has been a great help when it comes to the K-12 curriculum. Pero because this was during the time of PGMA in her executive order, so this is not senior high school. Pivot skills training. Hindi eh. We're talking about TVET with higher education. If it's TVET skills training, this is only under TESDA. Okay, so hindi. Public-private partnership, hindi eh. Kasi TESDA can also be private when we're talking about um, TESDA schools na private. CHED, yung higher education institutions can also be public and private. So it's not really about the public-private partnership. The answer is A, yung ladderized degree system. So if this is your first time knowing about the ladderized degree system, so let me discuss a little. Ladderized education is the answer to this wasteful duplication of um, there are skills that are taught in TESDA that are also taught in CHED. For example, computer. Diba? Kasi meron naman tayong mga computer qualifications like programming, etc. Tapos, meron ding sa CHED. So, what happens there? Diba? So, yung sagot is ladderized program, yung ladderation. Yung textbook graduate with gateways or entry points to a college degree program where he can earn appropriate equivalent credits for previous learning acquired in textbook. Or it could be the other way around. The child decides to enroll in a CHED degree program, let's say IT, diba? And within those 4 years, the student can actually acquire tech voc degree or tech voc points or tech voc qualification din. So for example, in a 4-year BSIT program, 2 years can be the ladderized program in which the child or the student will acquire the skills which are normally taken in TESDA. Diba? This can also happen in a BS hospitality management course in which there is a ladderized program and you could have an associate in hospitality management wherein during the 2 years of your 4-year course, you could actually gain qualifications in terms of housekeeping, front desk management, etc. Pero ngayon, yung ladderized education, although it's still present, pero because of senior high school, diba? Meron tayong PVL na strand, saka meron din tayong um, TLE when we were in junior high school, at saka junior high school, and in some in senior high school who are taking PVL, they will actually get the qualifications now which are actually intended for TESDA. Diba? So, ladderized education might be redundant na naman for them. Or they may decide not to go to a degree program if they decide to go to college to go through a ladderized program of education. Pwede. So again, yung sagot is letter A. That's it. This might be a long video, but I hope that you've learned well through the questions and my explanations about the answers to these questions related to the teacher and the curriculum, multiliteracies, and a little of social dimensions of education. Some of the questions here, especially on the last part, are actually taken from books from Lorimar Publishing. So one tip that I have for you is to get those books from Lorimar Publishing. They're actually multiple choice questions at the end of chapters. Please answer them. Kasi there were a lot of times that the questions coming from these books actually came out in the board exam. So yung mga questions ko rin dito about ladderized degree system, yung mga nasa last part are actually taken from Lorimer Publishing books. I kind of copied them, pero I would want you to learn them about these questions and you get to have more questions if you could also get a hold of these books under Lorimer Publishing. Okay, so that you'll be more ready for the board exam and you will pass and top the board exam, not just for MET, but for your own dreams and goals. To end our session today, here's a quote, my favorite quote from Khalil Gibran, especially with what is happening now in the pandemic and for some of us who are actually affected by Typhoon Odette. Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. God bless you, everyone, and good luck, licensed professional teachers.